everybody. So today we are going to be talking about the lunar eclipse in Pisces that will be taking place on Tuesday, September 17th at 9:34 p.m. Central Time. You'll need to adjust it to whatever time zone you happen to live in to figure out when this will happen for you where you are. But 9:34 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday, September 17th. And there's a lot going on with this with this eclipse, with this lunar eclipse. I'm you know, recently, well, really, this has been going on for a while, for a long time, but I've just recently kind of mentioned this and done like Instagram posts and things like that about it. But I'll get like a song in my head. This happens anyway, but really it'll really happen around like full moons, new moons, eclipses, lunar eclipses, solar eclipses, all that. And or I'll get an album in my head, like stuck in my head, or a movie or something or a TV show will get like stuck in my head. And I'm like, okay, well, this is what I'm going to roll with because it reminds me from a subconscious or unconscious place of this, lunation. This time, it just feels like a popsicle melting on the ground. So I'm calling it the melt. When I think of this lunar eclipse, I'm calling it the melt. There is so much going on. I'm going to use the star cards to illustrate. I'm also going to pull the chart too, so you can follow along. But if you are interested in the star cards, because I'm going to be showing them, I will put the link in the description box below where they can be purchased or, checked out further. They are an awesome astrological tool for learning the language of astrology. They really, really are. But so, okay, we have, well, what's going on, what'll be going on. I'm filming this on September 15th, 2024. So it hasn't happened yet. But we will have the South Node in Libra and the Sun in Virgo. The Moon in Pisces along with Neptune. Well, Neptune's been in Pisces for a while. Move into Aries for the first time next year, which should be a lot of fun. But the Moon and Neptune are conjunct one another in Pisces, and the North Node is in Aries. And then to add to the butt full of fun going on here, we have Mars in Cancer, which is squaring closely the North Node and South Node. And then we have Jupiter in Gemini squaring the Moon and the Sun and Neptune. And okay, so in terms of natal chart readings, which I do, and if you are interested in having me read for you any kind of astrology chart, any kind of, your natal chart, synastry, transits, whatever, I do readings. Recently, I've gotten some comments asking if I do readings. I do. I absolutely do. If you are interested in this, I will put the link below in the description box below where you can get a reading from me. It is in the description box or the channel page or whatever on YouTube, but maybe that's not the easiest thing to see. It's possible. It is possible that it's not, but I will put the link in the description box below where you can get a reading from me. But when I do natal chart readings specifically, I don't, there is such a thing as obviously as detriment, planets that are in detriment, planets that are domicile or at home, planets that are exalted, planets that are in fall. And when I see these in a natal chart, I don't, they just are, it just is what it is, right? They are what they are. So I consider it, but it's not like, I'm not like harping on your planet is exalted or your planet is in fall. But in the case of an event chart or a crime chart or horror chart or electional astrology or something like an eclipse or a full moon, new moon, whatever, a lunation, I do take these into consideration because this chart for the lunar eclipse in Pisces is essentially an event chart of when this happens. And what we have going on here that kind of makes me not as fond of this one is that we have Jupiter in Gemini. Jupiter is in detriment in Gemini, meaning it is at home domicile in Sagittarius. And then in the opposite sign, Gemini, it is in detriment. That just means that Jupiter is not as comfortable in Gemini. it's not able to express what it wants to express, needs to express, should express in the easiest way. In Gemini, it's harder for not Sagittarius, for Jupiter to express what it wants to express in Gemini versus Sagittarius. And we have this squaring this. And this also stands out to me because Jupiter traditionally rules Pisces. It's modernly ruled by Neptune. But we have the traditional ruler of this lunar eclipse in detriment, squaring it. And then we also have Mars in Cancer. Mars is in fallen Cancer, and it is the ruler of the North Node in Aries. And, you know, Mars in Cancer, in this kind of a chart, in this particular chart, feels real pissy, feels real defensive, feels real protective. Now, Mars in Cancer is protective, like it is very protective, but because this lunar eclipse feels so fucking melty, there's kind of like a sense of, do you actually take things feel personal that perhaps shouldn't be personal? Like things will be taken personal. There could be an inclination to take things personal when they're really not personal. Because Mars in Cancer does take things personally, does act personally, does defend personally. There's a personal defense, right? So pissy little Mars in Cancer. And as I'm saying that, I'm certainly not saying that everybody that has Mars in Cancer in their natal chart is pissy. That's not what that's not what I mean. Could go that way, but that's not what I mean. I mean, specifically in the case of this eclipse, it does feel a little pissier, a little defensive when perhaps it doesn't need to be. That doesn't mean that it shouldn't. There very well could be cases that it does need to defend. But I also could see it going where things are taken personally, and they shouldn't be taken personally. They shouldn't be taken as personally, meaning there's not quite as much to personally defend or go on the defense about. I'm going to show the chart here in just a second. But before I get more into this, I wanted to mention that I am running my course, A Journey Through Time. I'm going to show you all on the screen because there are so many dates and it actually kind of helps to make this make sense. Okay, so this is on my website. I will put the link below where you can check out this course, where you can jump on it, check it out further, whatever the case might be. I'll put the link in the description box to this video below. But it'll start on September 24th of 2024 at 6 p.m. over Zoom. And it's going to cover transit, solar arc, secondary progressions, return charts, all kinds of return charts will be discussed, but primarily like the solar return, lunar return charts, they happen every month, or lunar returns happen every month. Saturn return will definitely get mentioned, but we'll be going over all kinds of return charts, annual perfections, Time Lord. So there's a lot that's packed into 6 weeks. Now there's actually a 6-week and a 9-week option. And the reason why I'm doing this, I actually ran the same course in February, March. But my students from the Fundamentals of Chart Weaving this past spring and summer wanted me to do this again. We're interested in this particular thing. So I'm running it for a second time in 2024. And there are 6 and 9 week options. The 6-week option will deal with all the stuff that I mentioned before. And it'll be going from Tuesday, September 24th through Tuesday, October 29th. And then the 9-week course will go until Tuesday, November 19th. Now, the difference between the 6 and the 9-week course options is that the 9-week course, then after the last class for the 6-week course on October 29th, then that next Tuesday, November 5th, which is election day here in the US, that Tuesday, we will start talking about synastry or relationship astrology. That'll be that class. The next week, we will talk about composite charts and the different sorts of composite charts, how to read them. And then the third week, which is Tuesday, November 19th, that will be when we talk about the synthesis of both of those together. So there are two options. The 6-week course, which is just a journey through time, that is $250. The 9-week course is $370. You can pay for it outright on the website, through the website. If you need some sort of payment plan or payment option, I am happy to work with you like that. Most of the people that I've taught do take advantage of that. All you got to do is just shoot me an email, ellie@saturnseason.com or saturnseason@gmail.com. Either one, I'll get it either way. And we can work something out, something that works for both of us. But I am happy to work with you in that regard. I'm going to stop sharing that now. And now we're going to talk some more about I think I just froze a little bit, about the lunar eclipse. Okay. Actually, you know what? I'm going to share the chart so y'all can follow along with me. Okay. So this is what the chart looks like. We have the sun at 25 degrees Virgo, moon at 25, well, actually, it's to be exact, 25 degrees, 40 minutes of Virgo. 20, did I say 29? 25 degrees, 40 minutes of Virgo. The moon at 25 degrees, 40 minutes of Pisces. We've got Neptune right there with it, as you can see. Then the North Node is over here at 6 degrees Aries. South Node is at 6 degrees Libra. And there's that Mars in Cancer at 7 degrees, 47 minutes of Cancer. That is squaring within like a degree of the nodal axis. And we also have Jupiter in Gemini squaring a little bit wider, but squaring the moon and the sun. And then also, you know, something else that stands out here that kind of ties in with the stuff that I am going to talk about is Mercury in Virgo opposing Saturn in Pisces. And they're like, yeah, about a degree or a little less opposing one another. So, okay, so this one, and also, let me also throw this out there. This Neptune and moon, and even the nodes, are conjunct what I'm calling blank space. And conjunct the supergalactic center, which would be over here where my cursor is. Supergalactic center is at like 2 degrees Libra. Blank space is at 2 degrees Aries. So there's a lot going on here. Now I feel like, okay, so with this one, I feel like emotions probably run pretty high. I feel like they're probably gonna run pretty high here. Oh, hold on just a second. Sorry about that. I wanted to make sure that I had my notes and I didn't. Now I do. Now I have them. They're right in front of me right there. Okay. So let me share the screen again. Like I said, the melt, like so melty. I don't even remember to put my damn notes in front of me. Okay. Let me share the screen. Okay. Share everything. Okay. So, okay. So we've got the moon and Pisces. There is like there is a feeling of things being very, Pisces energy can be very confusing. Very confusing, not real clear, kind of unreal, escapist, though escape isn't necessarily a bad thing. I've harped on this before. It's not necessarily bad, but escape nonetheless could be something that's on the agenda for some people. And I want to also throw out how this plays out for you personally depends on your whole chart, and it depends on more than just your fucking rising sign. I want there is this thing, and I get it, but it's also, I think, very misleading is like, this is how it'll impact you depending on your rising sign or whatever. You got to take the whole thing into account. It's not just your rising sign. It's not just you got to take everything into consideration when looking at how something like an eclipse or any kind of lunation or anything is going to impact you personally. Take the whole thing into consideration. What this event is going to be doing to your chart, to all of your chart, not just one piece of your chart, or you'll be missing something. You might get a very, very, very general idea, but you won't get the full picture unless you look at whatever you're wanting to look at up against your natal chart. But I think for a lot of people, this isn't universal, right? It does depend on your chart. There's going to be a feeling of things not being as real or things not being as on solid footing, things being more up in the air, confusing, melty, melty. Things do feel very melty here. And, with that being said, because full moons and eclipses, they illuminate things. They make things very known. And in this case, or they have the capacity to do that for some people more than others. But in this particular case, I'm not sure how, I mean, things will be like illuminated, but do they make any damn sense? It's very possible they don't. And it could be that there are things that are illuminated that don't really make sense, and it needs to be illuminated that these things don't make sense. And this would be going on to, wherever this moon in Pisces would fall in your chart. By house, houses are areas of life or where things happen. So that might give you an idea of where, because there can be things you can be moving along with your life, doing things in a way that doesn't make any fucking sense, not realize that. And then something happens that makes you go, damn, this doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense how I'm doing this. And it could be that for some of y'all, this lunation might actually do that. It really could. Like things might be so confusing and might make so little sense that it illuminates things that you already do that don't make any sense there. Or are confusing or what have you. It could go that way. Or it could just be really, really, this lunation could just make that area of life, whatever house it falls in, it might just make that area of life even more confusing, even more unsettled or up in the air or unclear. It could definitely go that way too. Now, that's going to, Virgo energy doesn't, it doesn't like things that don't make sense. Virgo energy is very realistic. We're in realistic land now. It's realistic. It is discerning. It can be critical. It is real world focused, doesn't like it. It cuts through the bullshit. If shit doesn't make sense, it doesn't want to deal with it. Very logic and reason based in a similar way that Gemini energy can be, since they're both ruled by Mercury. And here it feels like, with this Jupiter in Gemini squaring the moon and the sun, it's too wide it's obviously not squaring the nodes, but it is squaring the moon and the sun and more loosely Neptune. I could see it being, I'm going to look it down at my notes. Okay. So I feel like there could be, Jupiter needs to, should understand information, assimilate information, these kinds of things, among other things. Expands, explores, it's overindulgent, it can be extra. Beliefs of all kinds. And but the information thing, the Gemini information and Jupiter understanding. So understanding of information. feels very scattered, right? Gemini energy can be very scattered. And I am going in a slightly more challenging direction with this because Jupiter is in detriment in Gemini. And in a chart like this, like I said before, I would take a more, a more challenging approach to this. And it just feels like that for you. We all come under this influence, right? It's going to impact some people more than others. But information, understanding of information that is thrown your way, that is communicated to you. It feels like so I do feel like there's gonna be a lot of information thrown at people. Expansive information, expansive scattering of information. That it doesn't feel like it makes a lot of sense, which is gonna drive the sun and Virgo crazy. It's not gonna it may not make a lot of sense. My advice here would be to I mean, obviously take it in, right? If something is being communicated to you, if an understanding of information is being communicated to you, or you need to communicate an understanding of information, something like that. By all means do it, but especially if it's communicated to you or shared with you, take it in, but I wouldn't sit with it I would sit with it later. I would not try to figure things out. Like because it just feels confusing. Like I'm even being confusing, I think, right now as I'm trying to explain it. The melt. But it's like it kind of feels to me like a game of telephone where you've got 10 kids in a row and they're all saying something to one another. And by the time you get to the last one, it is totally different. What the last kid says at the end is totally different than what was started out being said. That's what this feels like. So it could be an understanding thing on your personal end. I'm not trying to blame you, but it could be your own understanding of whatever's being shared with you or your own, it could be that. It could also be how it's shared with you, how this information is shared with you in the first place that could be confusing. Like, I do think that people will have things that are shared with them, things that are communicated to them. And it could be a lot of different things from a lot of, because, Gemini energy can be rather scattered and all over the place. So, take it in, right? Things that are shared with you, things that are communicated. But I wouldn't do much deep trying to understand it or assimilate it until after this. I would say the end of this coming week, once we get into like the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, I would wait. And mind you, we're also in eclipse season right now for the next couple of weeks. So it might even be wise to say things that are, communicated now, or they might not even be understood until after eclipse season ends. They might not make sense until after eclipse season ends. But at least, if not that long, at least through the end of this week, like 22nd, 23rd. I'm trying to think. Yeah, 22nd would be Saturday. Is that right? I don't even know. No, I'm crazy. I got my dates. 22nd would be a week from today. Yeah, 22nd. Yeah, I'm right. Like the 20th, 21st, 22nd. That's when maybe try to go back and like think about the things that were communicated with you, the things that were needing to be understood, and see if they actually make sense now. Because they could make more sense now. Or or you might be able to just completely disregard them because they might not have made any sense to begin with. Another thing, this Mars in Cancer squaring the nodes. Okay, so Mars in Cancer, like I mentioned, Mars in Cancer is very protective. In a positive way, it can be very protective. especially of, of things that are personal, of family, of home, of these kinds of things. But just in general, it is protective. This is not a Mars that goes on offense. This is a Mars that is very, very defensive. The thing about that, though, is sometimes Mars in Cancer in a chart like this can be defensive or take things personally when it doesn't need to. And I feel like that can tie in with this, like the information that is given to you, or the information that is shared with you, or even the things that just, depending on your chart, it could just be like your understanding. This could be even past information, right? This could be your understanding of past information, or it doesn't have to be stuff that's going on right now, though I think in a lot of cases it will be, because this is such melty, confusing lunation energy. It could be things, from the past. Like, let's say you've got your own natal south node or something like that conjunct that Jupiter. It could be your understanding of information that is past, right? Um it feels very like, ask yourself if you actually need to be as, if you feel defensive, if you feel like you're taking things personally, if you feel like you're poked out personally under this lunation based on the information and things like that. I would really ask yourself if you need to feel, if you need to take it as personally, if you need to feel as defensive as you might feel, if you need to defend, because in some cases, and I'm not trying to say that that's never going to be the case. There certainly are going to be people that might really need to personally defend something, or defend something that's very personal. They may need to go on the defense. They may need to be protected. But I think with the information fuckery, it's probably a good idea to make sure that it's actually worth getting defensive and protective about. I feel like it does, because I feel like, if one starts getting really defensive or really protective or taking things really personally, it could end up causing more confusion than is necessary, or end up being more confusing than is necessary. And there's already a lot of feelings going on here. Okay, there is. With the moon conjunct Neptune, the eclipse conjunct Neptune, the full moon conjunct Neptune. There's already a lot of feelings, a lot of, I have here in my notes, emotions and sensitivity might run high, with or without fully understanding why. There could be some of that too. Like, for some of y'all just might feel a little bit more or a lot more emotional, sensitive, all of this, and not necessarily know why. There might be, you might not feel like there's a specific thing that's provoked you, but you feel provoked. That's also Mars in Cancer, as well. um Emotions and sensitivity might run high, with or without fully understanding why. Allow yourself to feel the emotions and sensitivity and process them. And taking the time to process them might help make the emotional stuff, sensitive stuff, more clear. Try not to wallow or get lost in them, though. Pisces energy can have a tendency to get lost, as can Gemini, in different ways. So I wouldn't sit and wallow in them. I would try to take a more logical, rational, practical approach to it. Like, okay, I feel this way. I'm feeling provoked. I'm feeling provoked emotionally. This. Why is that? Let's make it not confusing. Why could that be? Get down to the logical, rational end of things, the practical end of things, the real world end of things, instead of just running around going, I feel provoked. Why is that? Why do you feel provoked? You know what I mean? If you are feeling that way, try to take that sort of approach. Or if you end up feeling that way, try not to wallow or get lost in them. Escape may even be something that one wants to do. Escape could definitely be on the table with moon conjunct Neptune and Pisces. Sometimes we need to escape, but what matters is how it's done, and that it doesn't cause any real setbacks once things get less melty. And I think that is something to mention here. Like, I would not, if you And escape, I've mentioned before, escape isn't a bad thing necessarily. It depends on how you do it. It depends on what kind of escape we're talking about. Is it a positive form of escape? Or is it like, is it a detrimental form of escape? And I think if you're feeling a need to escape, that is something, or to utilize an escape or something like that. I think an important thing is to ask yourself, does this set me back? Right? Does this set me back in some way? Does this hurt me in some way? Being very real with yourself about that. And, obviously if you still decide to do that escape or whatever, and even if you feel like it'll set you back or hurt you, well, that's your choice. We all have the choice to do whatever the fuck we want. But you might I can say you might wish that you hadn't when, this lunation is over and eclipse season in general is over. It is possible that you'll be like, damn it, I wish I hadn't done that. And this could be any kind of escape, right? And there are lots of ways that one can escape in life. This could be anything. Um, I also have here, my advice, wait to understand any information that may come your way. And the other sorts of Jupiter and Gemini things that I was talking about. There could definitely be some illuminations, what full moons do, but everything just feels too confusing, up in the air, and melty right now to actually understand everything correctly, whether that be on your end or on the end of the person delivering the information for you to understand, or the things that you, like I said, things that you have previously understood. I just think it's very important that, uh, I it just feels like things aren't going to be as understood right now. And yeah, I or understood as well. I'm gonna pick these up because it's starting to get windy. It wasn't a little bit ago, but now that it is, I'm like, oh God, I don't want them to blow away. Star cards. So, in saying all of that, to try to help, I really think something that you can do, right, is try to get as logical, realistic, real world focused as you possibly can. Try to be as logical and rational as you possibly can, not in a scattered way, but in a, or in a Gemini way, which, mind you, like I said, I'm going slightly more challenging because these, Jupiter and Gemini is in detriment and Mars and Cancer is in fall. But rather than taking, the Gemini approach to logic and reason, which can be a little bit more all over the place, the Virgo, um, the Virgo sort of logic and reason, one that is as practical, it is efficient, it is specific, detail oriented. And I feel like if you try to focus, if you really, really try to focus on the details of where these emotions or sensitivities come from, why you might feel provoked, why you might feel defensive, why this might be coming up at all, why you might feel confused, all these sorts of things. I feel like that will help considerably. It'll help keep you grounded. That's what it feels like. And with the galactic stuff, I'm gonna stop here because this is getting kind of long. But with the super galactic center here, where my cursor is, and blank space here where my cursor is. Blank space is like just doing or being. Because you can have conjunctions to blank space in Pisces, which is like just needing to be. And conjunctions, in Aries, which is just needing to do. So, feeling the feelings that you might have, feeling the sensitivities that you might have. Absolutely do it. Because that kind of goes along with the just doing, just being thing of the supergalactic, or not the supergalactic center, but blank space. Just kind of goes along with that. But don't wallow. Don't wallow in it. And I do feel like sometimes with the, with the galactic contacts, in this context, it feels like there could be wallowing that happens, and you don't want that. You don't want that to happen. Specifically in this particular chart, in this context. That doesn't help anything. I really don't think that it does here. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop this. But yeah. If y'all have any comments or thoughts about this lunar eclipse in Pisces, please leave them in the description, or not in the description box. Leave them in the comments below. You can't leave anything in the description box, just me. Leave them in the leave them in the comments below. I love hearing from y'all. I love sharing ideas and things like that. Definitely take a look and see where this is all these different things that I've talked about, where they are playing out in your own chart. Those houses that these things fall in are, the areas of life that this stuff might play out in or will play out in. Please do take your whole chart into consideration. And I am going to head off, but I will see you all later.